We've all heard her name, the Great Queen, the Phantom Queen, goddess of war, death, sovereignty. Who is she? More importantly, who isn't she? Today we discuss the Morrigan. Welcome to the Conclave.
Dun dun dun!
Just as funny the second time. Sorry if that sounded a little too serious or a little bit too much like an old school radio show podcast or not podcast.
Felt like we were about to go into War of the Worlds.
Yes,
or
that's
something.
that's the kind of radio thing I'm looking at. But like we did last time, we are trying out something new, so we have it all locked down for season 2, which is coming up very quickly next year. I'm surprised that we're about to finish season 1, which has been every other week for the entirety of the year. Something that we've learned from and probably won't be doing next year. We're going to take a little bit of a break to study and to get some things in. So the actual season will probably next year go from March to December, somewhere along there.
Plus, we got a lot going on in January and February because, like anniversaries, birthdays.
Oh, yeah. Too much.
Getting our shit together for the new year. We need a chance to focus on that stuff.
Real world stuff. That's fair. And, of course, I am Patrick, and this is my beautiful wife, Jessica. And we are here talking to you through the Conclave Podcast. Thank you guys so much for coming back and for bearing with us. This is episode 22.
Sure.
22. Is it 22 or 23?
I don't know.
I don't even know. I keep track of that stuff, but usually after editing and when we're getting ready to post. It is 2025 still.
Since 2020, I've essentially been Robin Williams' character in Jumanji.
Uncertain of what is going on around you?
No clue what's going on. There are definitely rabid monkeys. There are herpes monkeys in Missouri or Alabama.
Oh, that's an actual thing?
That's an actual thing. A whole truck carrying a bunch of herpes-infested monkeys wrecked on the interstate. There's still 3 that they haven't.
That happened like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, they still got 3 running out there.
They're still running well. So they are non-communicative. Like they can't give people the herpes.
Yeah, but still, we got herpes monkeys.
We have herpes monkeys. I don't know if that's because the result in a whole bunch of partying at the lab or if that was on purpose, but we have herpes monkeys.
Apparently, they also have COVID. Apparently, they've been injecting these monkeys full of stuff to, test on. But
well, that's actually no. I can't even knock the government for it. That's kind of the least thing they've done recently against, the world and life in general.
I'm just saying, we got Tiger King and herpes monkeys in the same decade. It's Jumanji.
I want to argue that. I want to argue with you on this, but I really can't because you're not wrong. As we both dramatically pause to take a sip of our tea, which let's go ahead and plug that.
Yeah, let's plug this because it's delightful.
Anytime you see us drinking something hot, you got one of 2 options. It's either tea or it's coffee. I mean, that's pretty standard for most people. However, if it's tea, it is one of 2 things. Either a concoction that Jess threw together with the herbs here in the shop because somebody's not feeling very well and, God bless you,
excuse me,
needs a little bit of a pick-me-up. Or it is a wonderful tea blend from Hag in the Hedge, who has been writing teas for the shop here for a couple of years now, and is in the process of getting her own brick and mortar up. I know she's selling out of a store now.
Yeah, but she wants to get her own spot eventually, hopefully soon. But today we're drinking her chocolate caramel tea, which is black tea with cocoa nibs. It also has some calendula and chamomile in there, which was a surprise when I was looking at the ingredients. Okay. And some caramel flavor, and it's honestly delightful. It's
which is surprising to hear Jess say she's not a caramel fan.
I don't like the texture. I don't mind the flavor. It's just burnt sugar.
That's fair, but it still comes out to whenever we have like the espresso stuff we have at home. You're not a fan of the caramel.
It's too sweet with the coffee.
I mean, that's fair. So it's either a texture thing in real life or it's a little because a lot of those concentrates or a lot of those flavorings are extremely sweet.
Yeah.
So so I stand by you don't really like much caramel.
That's fair. This tastes like almost like a hot chocolate with a little bit of caramel in it.
Oh, it's so good.
It's really good.
Now we also put a little bit of a Italian sweet cream into it. So that really just kind of, I think that's what's edging it into that hot chocolate.
Into that hot cocoa mode. I'm gonna have to try the Swiss hot cocoa one she made next.
Oh yeah,
And I think the
yeah,
Irish cream is the next one I want to try after
yeah.
that.
So, but it's not just flavors like that. She has flavors dedicated to the seasons, to
The gods.
the gods, to the holidays. I'm not going to say Sabbats because I don't like using that word in reference to pagan holidays.
But she has one for
But
Samhain, she has one for Yule, and she actually does have a tea blend for the Morrigan.
yep, yep.
That we do sell here. It's on our website.
And it's important that we bring that part up because that's today's topic, the Morrigan. On Morrigan, if we want to be a little bit more accurate, on being the Irish word for the. That's actually going to come into play into the discussion of who she is today. Why is this one of our topics? Well, the Morrigan is my goddess. I have been. I hate using the words working with her, but there's really no better way to discuss the beginning side to it. So, when we first started our trek into paganism, one of the first books we bought, and it wasn't even because we wanted to be involved in paganism, it's because we're like, oh, cool, here's a book on Irish mythology. You don't see it very often. Usually you just see Greek or Egyptian, so cool, let's get this and read up a little bit. And it was almost instantly, the second that I got to the chapter that was on the Morrigan, that things started changing for me. And like a page into the chapter, and I was already starting to think of what kind of tattoos I can get in her honor, which was just very strange at the time. And then there was more signs as it moved forward. A lot of crows, a lot of just blatant imagery. My card reading started getting stronger. All these things. I get lost in my head in the thoughts of my time back in the military and in the Marine Corps, and kind of that warrior feel aspect would come back to it. And it just kept growing and growing. And when I realized that, this is potentially on Morrigan reaching out, I kind of opened myself up to that thought process. It's like, all right, cool. If this is you, can you let me know? And almost immediately, like a murder of crows flew overhead. It's like, okay, that's awkward timing, but sure. We weren't really looking at, we were still living in that space of, the first commandment says no gods before me. So therefore, technically, as long as I don't put one of them before him, it's still okay to we were rationalizing.
I was following along.
Fair. I was rationalizing. I had a lot of stuff done. So I had, I reached back out. I was like, I need some time. Let me think about this. Let me get my head straight. And every time she would show up for a little while after that, it was kind of along the same lines, which is one thing I absolutely love about my goddess. Because she's a goddess of sovereignty, it's not a force in saying, I need time to figure this out, and it's an okay thing for pretty much all the gods. But there have been some out there that people that we've talked to that never felt like they had that choice. And I always felt like I had that choice.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until we were down in Myrtle Beach visiting Jess's parents, and she happened across a metaphysical shop down there. And, it was one of those things of, hey, when you join us down here, we'll go. And of course, like always, everything in the shop that had a crow on it was just like screaming to me. And the shop owner, shout out to Ash.
No.
Or sorry, Ivy.
Different plant.
Different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ash on the store across the river from us. But Ivy comes out and she kind of just gives me this look. She's like,
we need to talk.
And she pulls me into the back. And right before I had left to meet up with Jess and the kids down there, I had ordered a book on Amazon, and we're going to go over a couple good books to read and start from. And as we was waiting for it to deliver, she pulls me in. We get to talking, and she re-emphasizes the fact that the Morrigan is calling to me, and that she was herself a priestess of the Morrigan. Now, this is kind of the interesting thing. Her husband, who was a Marine veteran, followed Loki. So here I am getting in with the Morrigan. Jess hadn't quite got...
It was her son, her trans son.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Lokian.
Okay, sorry. This is a while ago now, folks. Yeah. This is a good almost 10 years. I just
have a weirdly specific memory for random facts that I don't necessarily need to want to that much.
So anyway, we had this discussion. And it turns out that her mentor, who helped pull her into and get her through the steps to becoming deep in with the Morrigan, is the same woman who wrote the book that I was waiting on to be delivered at the house. So things just lined up way too much, and eventually it's like, okay, I'm ready. Let's do this.
Too many synchronicities.
Way too many, and it was. Now this is a lot of UPG at this point here, unverifiable personal gnosis. Um,
We did a whole podcast on that kind of stuff if you want to go back.
it was intense because it was like you had to learn by teaching yourself, and you got guided by getting slapped across the side of the head for not getting it right. It's like, okay, well, how am I supposed to do it, or what am I supposed to be? Just smack, figure it out. Okay. And this was the early. This was the early stages of it. It was at the same time, her passing on knowledge to me, or helping to open up things. It was the I'm not going to spoon feed it to you. You have to prove to me that you're going to put in this kind of work. So we eventually come together with it. It was after almost 5 years before I officially devoted to her. And then a year ago, this past Samhain, I took my priestly vows to her and have dedicated all of my paganhood type life pretty much to the Morrigan. So that is a very long drawn out process. Explains why we're doing an episode on Morrigan. Now, you're asking yourselves the big question of who is she? And there's a few things I think that we need to look into before we go into that, right? And that is my personal belief, and again, this is massive UPG. My personal belief that there are three versions of every god out there. Okay. The first one is the obvious. That is the historical, that is the lore base, that's old world, the country that they come from, the lore that dates back thousands of years. This is who the god or goddess really is, right? But then we have New World. And this is where my personal UPG kind of starts coming into it. And I feel a little silly every time I mention this, but I think Neil Gaiman in the book American Gods really got this right. And I know he's a problematic author at this point,
but we were reading
him long before any of this was known. But I think he hit the nail on the head, because I don't think they fully touched this in the show, but in the book, by the end of it, you realize, and it's explained, that while the gods are here in North America and in this country, the original version of the god still remains home. You're just bringing an aspect of it with you. And because you don't have the same tools available to you here in the New World, opposed to the old world where the god originated from, your style of practice changes. Because you cannot worship them 100% the same way you did back home, because you don't have everything the same as you did back home.
I think there's also the aspect of the fact that, unlike Europe, America does not have a lot of ethnocentricity. You will have people who have 17 different countries in their ethnic background.
Yeah.
Whereas, where you're an Italian, you might have a little smattering of Swiss or German or something.
Yeah.
But you're raised culturally Italian, especially too, as well. So, I think there's a lot of ethnocentrism in Europe that allows for a more purity-based practice. Whereas here, it's just I also learned this thing from my granny. I learned this from my auntie.
And over the years, as that water gets muddier and things melt together better, you get even further away from worshiping how they were traditionally worshipped. The stories are now different because people in this area have had different interactions with, a little bit more UPG gets added in on top of the lore to make everything kind of fit into this area. So I think that's version 2 of the gods.
Yeah.
Right? And then we have version 3. And version 3, I like to refer to and think of as faith-based. And that, a prime example of it, and not limited to, but the easiest example to it, is Wicca. So when Wicca began, they started pulling in a lot of gods and goddesses from different pantheons and different countries. They have their base just goddess and god, but then they kind of break it down, and they have pulled in a lot of other deities along with it. Now, when they pull them in, you are cherry picking a little bit. You're picking this god for this reason, this goddess for that reason, this one for this one for this. And how do we, punch them all kind of into the same places with the same things? So now this creates a different version of the god because, again, you're looking at it, worshiping it, and viewing it differently. Because of these three type things, that's why I like going over in this kind of context who on Morrigan isn't before we go over who she is. And the first one, and this is first for a very good reason, because this is the bastardization of a lot of goddesses from the Abrahamic faiths coming into the area, and Christianity more specifically. She is not dark. She is not a demon. And she was kind of pushed this way because she was a very important figure in the Irish mythology. Her name translates to either the Great Queen or the Phantom Queen, depending on which translations you look at. And in either aspect of it, it shows kind of that importance. One being in the fact that she is just very, very great and influential and necessary. The other one being Phantom, it ties in with the death and the others and the other side and all this stuff that then becomes
One thing the early church really didn't
dark
like
and evil.
was powerful women.
They hated powerful.
Fucking
They
hate them.
still
They
hate.
still hate them. I'm just
And
saying.
just broke the barrier right there.
Yeah, sorry.
Pretty early in, but
I'm getting attacked by a
but
cat.
rightfully so. Oh, Tinkerbell has made an
Tinkerbell.
appearance. Talk about dark and demonic evil women. How you doing there, sweetheart? So this is where she kind of got that moniker. It is quite literally propaganda. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and throw that out. Throw that out. Now, some people still embrace the title of dark when it comes to goddesses like the Morrigan, and I think this is more of they're taking it back.
Yeah, I want to say that you hear the dark god or the dark goddess associated a lot with like deities that have chthonic or war ties.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's just like kind of feel like it's just like, yeah, they're dark and metal, man. Like,
gonna pull out our studded bracelets, spike our hair. Then I think you're kind of like
gotta pull out the guy liner for this one.
Yes. The next one is she is not a moon goddess. She has zero affiliation with the moon. Now, in neo-paganism, because of the things that have been associated with her, if you are going to practice with her when it comes to moon magic, she would be connected more and fit. I shouldn't say connected more. She'd fit in more with the new moon and the new moon cycle. Okay. Next, and this is
she's dark. You want the dark moon.
The next one is
supposed to be keeping you on track.
Yeah, you're supposed to be keeping me on track. This is a 2-hour class I taught that we're kind of powering through to get into our typical hour. And Jess over here playing the air guitar, which I love it though. Please don't stop. The next three, these are probably the ones that, in all honesty, annoy me the most. Okay, and we're gonna get. So the first is that she is seen as a maiden, mother, and a crow. No. No. The reason why she has been associated with that is, again, these faith-based practices that pull the gods and goddesses from history in. They modeled around what they want to see. And because the Morrigan is also a triple goddess, they automatically assume Maiden Mother Crone because that's what's popular and cool in neo-paganism. However, when we cover it, she's not a triple goddess in the fact that it's one goddess with three aspects. She's a triple goddess in that one of the ways the Morrigan is seen is as Na Morrigna, where it's three different goddesses under the title of the Morrigan. We're going to get into that in a little bit. That's where things really kind of get muddied in water with it. But she's not a maiden mother crone. Now, can all aspects of the goddesses who fall under the umbrella present in any of those ways? Yes. One of the big things that keeps me and really kind of pushes me most against this is the mother aspect. The Morrigan was not necessarily, I say not necessarily, because there are theories out there, but there's no actual direct lore beyond the lore where she has had to kill her child because he had three serpents in his heart that, if born, would destroy all of Ireland. That is really the only that I know of, and trust me, there's a lot of lore out there that I'm still getting through.
So she's the real Saint Patrick who got rid of the snake from
A
Ireland.
damn straight. So she had to sacrifice her child. Um, I don't know many people out there who have had to lose a child and never have a kid again, and still want to be reminded that they're a parent. It's a painful wound. Now there are other forms of mythology and stories that would show potential other parentage and other children. Um, one being the 26 by 26 warriors. Uh, this is listed more though in a clan type family, like she's the mother figure of these warrior sects. Okay, not that she gave birth to and raised these kids. All right. The second one is that she's a sex goddess. No, she is not. Now, we do have one story in which she does have sex with her husband.
Yeah, it doesn't mean she doesn't fuck. It just means she's not a sex goddess.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at it, if we labeled all gods and goddesses that have sex as sex goddesses and sex gods, every single god would be. I mean, let's pull Zeus in here for a moment. I would not label him a sex god at all.
I 100% would, but I would put Dionysus first because he runs around with a giant phallus.
I mean, just because Zeus has a lot of sex doesn't necessarily make him a sex god. I wouldn't use him because a lot.
I would probably use him for fertility, as if I were a man.
Yes.
If I were trying to begot children on women, I would definitely call on Zeus for that.
Fertility, yeah, okay. I'll give you fertility, but I don't necessarily think that makes them I think fertility workings and sex workings are different.
I don't know. Do you think they ever had to do a working to Zeus to get it up?
I'm sure some
like a ritual to because they were impotent.
Okay, but that's
I'm off
still,
topic. Sorry.
You are, but it's an interesting theory. I still don't think that classifies the same as sex magic. I think that is more of a medical magic.
Okay.
I think there's offshoots of the general broad thing of sex magic, but when you're looking at a deity that is a sex god or sex goddess, I think it's specifically for brown chicken, brown cow.
Yeah, I'd be interested to have this discussion with Sean.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get Sean on here one of these days to do that.
But moving right along.
So yes, is there the story in the second battle of Moitora of the meeting of the married couple at the ford? Yes. So her and the Dagda do have sex, but again, it doesn't necessarily make her a sex goddess. When we flash forward to the Tainbo Kolag, does she shapeshift into Maeve's daughter? I think it's Maeve, one of the princesses. She shapeshifts into to try and seduce Cuchulainn. Yes, she does do that. But her end goal isn't sex. It's not trying to bed Cuchulainn. What she's trying to do is pull him off of his word. He has, dedicated that I'm going to go against all the armies of Ireland. I'm the hero and the protector of Ulster. Everybody be damned. And she's trying to yank him out of that and get him to walk away from that, to potentially affect the war. The reasoning for it is never quite understood. So, she's either trying to affect the war into the side of the other three counties of Ireland.
Distract him enough that they can attack,
or this is a test of his honor and his valor,
his resolve,
making sure that he has what it takes to actually do this. I honestly believe it's the former, not the latter, just because at that point, Maka would have already cursed the Ulstermen. So, but that is stories for another time.
And this one pisses you off.
No, this one pisses me off so hardcore. So bad. And that is Morgan Le Fay.
First off, it's a French name. Why do you think she's Irish? Le Fay is of the fairies.
This is true. However, on Morrigan was one of the, as far as I've been able to tell, was one of the, and almost like the primary basis of the character Morgan Le Fay. However, Morgan Le Fay is a British literary character and the sworn enemy of Arthur.
This would be the equivalent of trying to say that the Dionysus in the Percy Jackson series is the real Dionysus. Basically, that's like yes, there were some things that were taken and there were some things that they were based on, but it's not Dionysus.
See, and I don't think that even really fully
That's even not close
that
enough.
doesn't even fully carry because if the character was just simply based after, then okay, I think that would be a proper comparison. But now make that Dionysus the villain of the series,
Yes,
right? She is the villain. So when
which
you,
from a British perspective,
from a British perspective, that would be true,
yeah,
right? Um, Now it's not even that she's the full interpretation of for that. There's a lot. There was a some Welsh mythology that leaked into it also, but
and probably some things from northern France.
yeah, when you're looking at it and you're trying to use that name associated with the goddess, it's in a very insulting way because again, the enemy, written this way by as the villain to the greatest hero in mythological slash literary writings for that country.
Yeah.
That country is an invading force that has at times decimated Ireland. So it's not, you could argue, oh, well, because she's their enemy, then I'm still supporting it in the right way. No, you're not. Just stop. Okay. There is no mythological true out connection. There is no historical connection other than somebody going, oh, look, this is somebody important to them, so let's make them look evil and bad.
Yeah.
Okay. That's you can look at a lot of early American political cartoons and yellow journalism and attribute the same thing to a lot of different people in this country who were uh, villainized for a long time for no flipping reason.
It's anti-Irish propaganda.
Yeah, and then looking at it and be like, oh no, that's good. It's not good. It's not. And what really gets me is, we had one individual that would come to the shop a lot, and I would try to, just casually discuss things. And, I brought up the pronunciation of the name and the who they are. And it was just a very simple, well, this is what I call her. No, we don't play that. You call the gods
What they
by
are.
their names. And you know what? Let's get into that actually. Let's look into it. The proper pronunciation. Personally, I use on instead of the. This is because when you look at my UPG of the three breakdowns, I don't stick with the North American, the New World style. I don't stick with a faith-based style. I strictly study and go along with the old world original, the mythology.
He's a reconstructionist.
I'm a reconstructionist, and we've covered that. It's not a secret. So, I stick with that. And part of my practice and my dedication has been trying to learn Irish. So, for me, in the short of it is, on comes before the for me when we're speaking of her. But saying the is not wrong.
I feel like that's perfectly acceptable,
Yeah.
especially as an
Yes.
American, North American,
Yes.
have you? As a native English speaker.
When we break down the name Morrigan, it's more, gone. Not Morgan. Morrigan. Not Morrigan. On has a AWN sound to it. If you're going to worship a god or a goddess, make sure you are pronouncing their name correctly. All right. Now, we do have a slight difference pronunciation when we come into the na Morrigna, right? And that is because na is also the in Irish, but it's plural.
Okay.
That's the indicator that you're now getting a pluralized word. And Morrigna, Morigna, is going to be that pluralized version of the Morrigan. Na Morrigna translates still to the Morrigan. But because of the spelling difference and the na instead of on, that's known in the native language as this is now a plural. And this is where we kind of get this first muddying of who she really is, right? Because is it one goddess? Is it three goddesses? Is it one goddess that projects as three goddesses? It's translations that kind of get it muddied.
And again, we're working with oral tradition, so
yeah,
everybody's reconstructing the best they can from the information we have.
Yeah. So when we look at single goddess versus the group and the multiples, we see this differentiation that there is two separate things when we look at the lore in the first battle of Moytora, and this is when the Irish first came to or the two a day first came to Ireland, and they had to fight the Firbolg for control. They didn't want to, but it was challenged in, and it's a whole to do. But it mentions that the Morrigan and her sisters, the daughters of Ernmas. So we know, and then it breaks it down. It mentions which goddesses and are included in that. So just that one little section is very important on who she is, because we do know then that she's the daughter of Ernmas. It is generally understood and believed that her father is Delbeth.
Okay.
But that's just kind of the looking into deeper lore. There's no actual line that says daughter of Delbeth, but that's kind of that. Once you piece everything else together, it makes
It's like,
sense.
Hermes went with Delbeth.
Yes, yeah. So then it's mentioned in the lore that the three sisters that make up Namrigna are going to be Maka, Baiv, and An Morrigan. So the Morrigan is part of Namrigna.
And I feel like it's very interesting that, like, obviously we see that the Morrigan, the Morrigan, Morrigan is the dominant sister,
Mhm.
because Namarigna, I mean, her name is the source of the
Correct.
title. So,
Yes.
like, we see that, yes, she shares this role with her sisters, but she's definitely head bitch in charge.
So in charge kind of then implies that there's a hierarchy to it, and that like they're meeting up and acting as one or in connection
As
with
a
each other.
council.
It's not necessarily like that. It would more be like, um, well, we're going to take this, we're going to create this new military rank, and the general over there, he's going to be the first in this
We're going to
military
name
rank.
it after the
So we're
first
going to name it the generals. So everybody that shows the necessity of being at this rank will be called general.
It'd be like naming all the generals packs.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So at least that's the way. So again, there's a lot of mythology out there. I'm 12, 15 years in. I got a lot more to understand and learn. So if I'm getting any of this wrong,
By all
let me know
means.
and cite the sources for me, please, because that does.
He's always anxious for new sources.
I'm always anxious for new sources and to be able to dive deeper into, right? But that's more of what we're looking at. There are some other sisters who are regularly accepted as that, because it doesn't stay at just those three sisters. Those were kind of the original scene in there, but it has kind of blown up and gone larger. Anu is seen as one of the sisters of the Morrigan, as well as Neve, who was like sister wife to Baiv.
Okay.
Um, Now, when you look at the weird breakdown, there's also the thought of, well, maybe Baiv is actually these two different goddesses. She personality changes and shifts into these two other goddesses,
or just a regional
yeah,
manifestation of that, because you see that a lot in North with like Frigg and things like that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of those others and a lot of those things kind of put them together. But then, using myth to support, not only do we see An Morrigan as listed as fighting with these sisters, we see her then in the second Battle of Moytora, and this is when the Tua gained their freedom from the Fomorians, who became an oppressive race over them after they had beaten the Firbolg. And this is where we see the coupling with the Dagda. And it's, the Dagda comes upon this woman at the ford, one leg on one side, 9 plaits of hair, and it was his wife, the Morrigan. So again, we see this listed as a single person. The story would be completely different, and then maybe we would look at her as a sex goddess if it was 3 sisters that Dagda was married to and meeting up on the ford.
Right.
That pulls in a whole different
that's a whole different type of party.
And in the back of my head, I just feel the eyes glaring down at that connection. So, okay, real quick, let's backtrack a second. And that's, I need to explain, I keep saying the two a day. Let me explain real quick who they are. So the two a day, which most people know and recognize as Tuatha Dé Danann, are the race that becomes the gods of Ireland. Okay, there's a very long backstory to it. But that's essentially the name of the pantheon, right? Because you have the Olympians, you have the Aesir and the Vanir, you have the Tuatha Dé Danann. Now, there's a lot of question on where the name Tuatha Dé Danann comes from. A lot of it is the children of Danu. However, Danu never was in Ireland. Danu is a Celtic goddess from the Germanic areas. So there's no actual lore of her being in there. What this does come down to, though, when you look at two a day, you're looking at this more of the tribe of God, tribe of gods, right? And that essentially is a much better way to explain who the two a day are. They're a tribe, a clan of gods.
I think that bringing Danu in is the same reason people conflate Ishtar and Easter, just because it sounds close enough.
So that's probably part of it, and it's because it sounds close to is the main reason. When the Catholics came to Ireland and they started rewriting the Bible for these people to be able to read and understand, well, the Jewish people would have been referred to in that language also as two a day, the tribe of God.
So they had to have
so they had to differentiate.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
So that's when Danu was
kind of
put in there and kind of added in. So when I'm speaking to the general public, because it's more commonly known as Tuatha Dé Danann, I'll still keep it that way. In my personal practice and when I'm leaving offerings and stuff like that, I shorten it to the two a day. Okay. Side story over.
Sorry, I'm supposed to be keeping you on track, and I just keep coming up with
ways to pull me off.
Ways to pull you off.
That's okay. Listen, this is a very broad thing, and it is at times very difficult.
And I'm coming from a layman's perspective.
Yes.
I know just what you've told me because I don't have enough time to study my own gods, much less add in yours.
Yeah.
So if I need
a little top off that deep. No, but 100%. Because and it's the same with me and Loki.
Yeah, right? If you need to know something, just ask me.
Exactly. So in all that explanation, we kind of glazed over, but let's go ahead and circle back around. Morrigan is the wife of the Dagda. The Dagda being one of the kings of the two a day. He came in to the king role a little bit later on. The Dagda is also a very curious one because Dagda is not his actual name. His real name is lost. Nobody knows it.
So the Dagda is his title.
So the Dagda is one of his many titles. It's probably the preferred title. It comes out to the good god. And it's not necessarily because he's good. It's because he's good at everything.
I feel like big swinging dick god would be a little too long.
Yeah, there is that aspect to him. He drags a large club that leaves a
furrow in the ground to plant in.
Now, if we're looking at sex gods,
there's one.
There would be one. Again, I think he goes a little bit more.
Everything.
He goes a little bit more to the fertility side of sex goddery, but there would be one. Now, his one son, Angus Og, I think would be an even better idea for that, but that's different.
Neither here nor there. We're talking about the Morrigan.
We're just kind of going through. Now, okay. As I just mentioned, his son. Now, we talked earlier that the Morrigan doesn't have children. The Dagda does.
Got a club like that, you got to use it, man.
Yeah. So, because there doesn't show. So when you look at Greek mythology, Hera finds out about Zeus's affairs. She's pissed off.
Yeah, Morrigan doesn't seem to care.
The Morrigan doesn't care. If she does, it's a very short blurb. It's nothing that really interferes with anything. Through my own practice, I have never gotten. I get a little bit of a when we bring up Angus. It's a little understandable. He stepped out, but some people then think that their marriage, the Morrigan Dagda, their marriage is more contractual and more of a hierarchical type of a marriage.
More of a marriage of political alliance than, which would make sense if you're talking about the fact that they come together once a year.
But it doesn't say they don't come together other times. This is just like that one time.
But they're contractually obligated to
they
on
always do. Not necessarily on Samhain. It's a couple days prior.
But still, Samhain season is bone time.
It is. And that's kind of what I thought for the longest time. It wasn't until I started reading more about the Dagda and reading some writings on him and stories dedicated to, and then kind of reading, in my attempt to learn Druidry, bringing him in, gaining it's not a great relationship we have. It's not like a real tight, but it's building of one, and interacting with them together shows a very different story than what I thought of their marriage before it. Now, this is getting into UPG, and we're going to explain why UPG, even for Reconstructionists in this, is very important. Um, but we'll touch on that here in a little bit. Um, but from my experiences, there is a lot of love and a lot of joy and a lot of playfulness in that marriage. I think it's just kind of one of those things of the morality
It's
of the
different.
time and for the race was different than what we see.
And I think he wasn't Dagda like a traveling god too, like where he was very often like going on journeys, going from here to there.
There's a lot of lore of him going off and doing.
I wouldn't say necessarily a wanderer like Odin
Yeah, because
per
we're
se,
looking at like real small area.
but like where he would just be like, "Well, I'm gonna go do this week because I got shit to do over on this side of the island real quick, and I'll see you in a bit."
Well, see, and another part of it is when we look at all these monikers of this is the god of that, and then this and this and then the other thing. That's a very modern thing,
Yeah,
right? They weren't seen as gods of prophecy and war and death. Instead, it was more of god of the region,
yeah.
right? And
It was more closely tied to the land.
yeah, it was much more closely tied to the land. They all had like a certain area that they were, kind of patron gods of, or worshipped more directly in. So if
Or like
they're
the ruling
counting,
family had a
yeah,
particular
yeah,
affinity for.
and it does then leak into the clans. So there's a lot of people who can say, "Oh, my lineage can be traced to Lu. My lineage can be traced to Dag. They can be traced to
And we see
Morgoth."
that a lot in all of Europe at the time.
Yeah,
Like you see Greek city states who are like, we can trace our origin to Athena. We can trace our, and you see that in Nordic regions. We can trace our lineage to Thor or Odin or Freyr.
yeah, yeah. So you see that kind of a lot. Um, so if his and her regions of excellency were in different areas, it's going to be a little bit different from what we see. Now, of course, they spend most of their time in the other world, but we're not invited into really knowing what that is. So they may live as normal husband and wife in the other world. It's just when they come to our world,
They're
they're
responsible for
responsible
different
for different
areas.
areas. Yeah. Um, okay, so that's where we kind of pull all of that from. Now let's look at why she is given the monikers that she is. Right. So first being war and death. Well, I think there's a couple different reasons, and that's because in the main, I would say the main battles that the two a day fight together, the first and second battles of Moitora, she played a very integral role in. Um, First as both the singular and as the group of sisters. Um, when we look at the second battle of Moitora after the coupling, it was she was the one who told the Dag to go collect everybody up, go get the other gods, get them together, because we can win this. She had a vision. She knew that this was going to be a victory, and she had to help get everybody involved and wanting to participate. So she snuck off into one of the Fomorian encampments and killed one of their kings with her bare hands and brought back handfuls of blood. Be like, here, look, they can die. They can die. We can do this. Right. So that right there is a lot of war. The Bive specifically, her one moniker is Bive Katha, and that is Battle Crow. And there are legends of her running across the battlefield on the tips of spears and just slaughtering as she goes along the way.
Fun.
Right? I love
It's a
it.
great imagery.
It really is. So as one of the sisters, then that kind of gets put into it. The prophecy aspect to her also kind of assists into this because and this is again mostly with the Bive area. Um, she's known as the washer in the ford. So as the Irish people would be going off to battle, and they would look over into the river and see a woman washing blood from armor, And if they recognize that armor is theirs, that was the omen that they were not going to make it back and that they were going to die. And it was Bive who would do that. So it touches into the prophecy aspect of, as well as the death aspect, because if you can tell that the person is about to die, well, obviously you must be keyed in with death. And these were deaths on battlefields. So again, boom, war. I think one of the other reasons why we see her really kind of tuned in with death and war is her shape-shifting aspect into the crow. The crow in so many cultures
Yeah.
are seen with war and death and battle.
It's actually really hard to find a culture that doesn't have the crow as some form of go-between between the
Yeah.
living and the dead.
And that was kind of the thought. When they would see the crows on and picking at the dead bodies on the battlefield and then flying away, it was seen as that crow is taking the soul, taking the spirit, and taking them to the other world. Or to the underworld, otherworld, however, whichever culture it was at the time. Um, Now, other things that kind of put her into the prophecy side is that, they would go to her asking her, hey, what's going to happen here? What's going to happen there? Two key elements to that is going to be, like we were just saying, the second battle of Moitora. So, she saw their victory before it ever happened and used that to help rally the troops. She also gives a very long um, prophecy at the end of that war going into, because they're like, oh, what's it going to be like? What's our future like? And it's, lists all the many, many generations of prosperity, 9 generations of prosperity before it cues into, however, and that there being a dark side. When the 5th invasion into Iraq, or into, yeah, Ireland, let's hope it's not Iraq, because we've
Right.
only been through 2. It means there's 3 more.
Right.
When
Let's hope that's not a prophecy.
if it is, sorry guys. With the 5th invasion into Ireland, and you have the Malaysians coming in, it was the Morrigan who looked at them and said, listen, I've seen the future. We're not winning this one. We need to go into the she mounds and go to the other world. She mounds being the like
Fairy
big,
mounds.
yeah, fairy mounds where they're able to have, and most of the gods have their own personal she to go in between the two realms. And actually, even that word there is very complex, going into she mounds or the she or the a she. There's a lot that goes along with it. From there, we have the part that I think is her main aspect, or at least with me, this is the quality of the Morrigan that comes out the most and is taught the most, and that is sovereignty. That is standing your ground, saying, "This is who I am. This is what we're doing." Um, this is the aspect I think that why you see nowadays she's used in a lot of social justice movements.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people see that as like, oh, it's the war aspect. No, I don't think so. I think it's the sovereignty aspect.
Yeah.
I think it's that
I
aspect
think it's like the standing
being,
on business
yeah,
aspect.
you're standing 10 toes down to be who you are and not have to make it up for others. Does that lead to battle? Yes. So there's a tie in there. But that sovereignty is where I believe she lives the most, at least in my relationship with her. And then we have her shape-shifting abilities. She can present as many, many different things, um, including people. There is lore of her shapeshifting into old ladies, into beautiful princesses, all this kind of good stuff. But then she has animal aspects that she shifts into. We've mentioned the crow. The crow is one of the ones that is most notable and most seen, and our biggest association with her when it comes to animals. The others, we have the wolf, an eel, and a heifer. These come through in the story of the Tane and her and Cuchulainn fighting and attacking through. Um, there is a lot of healing aspect to this story, also with both Ku and her being injured, and her giving him milk to drink to heal one aspect, and as he drinks it, he feels better. He blesses her, and boom, she heals, and it goes on and on. Um, and then she shifts into who she really is, blessing her who she really is, and he's like, I would never have done it if I knew it was you. You know,
Stop
these
sucking strange shitties, man.
milked into a cup. Not like here, suckle here. I mean, come on now. This is how rumors start. Good lord, this isn't Greek. This isn't bestiality coming out.
What was Sean blowing up your phone for?
I don't
The
know.
fourth time he's called.
Okay, we're gonna keep recording, but I'm gonna step off. And I can edit this out.
Yeah.
Hey, bud, what's up? Yeah, we're open.
We're trying to record a podcast.
Yeah, no, you can still get in. All right, see you in a bit. Bye.
Damn it, Sean. Thought he was in a ditch somewhere the amount of times he called.
Right. Okay, so yeah. So those were a lot of the different images and shapes in which she takes up. Um, so why is UPG important? I mentioned this a couple times throughout. Everything I've been able to figure out through the years of practicing Irish paganism, journeying and speaking with the gods and the heroes is a giant aspect to it. We have some of the lore and the myth. We have the gateway and the path to get it all. Not get it all, but
We have
to get a
enough
good
to
bit learned.
discern that
Yes,
we're talking to who we think we're talking to.
exactly. From there, it is important that we speak with them. We learn from them. So UPG is very important. We get a lot of that UPG, uh, not just through things that happen in the physical world while we're practicing, which it can be. Um, you know, when I would start first leaving offerings of tea, I was just using sugar and milk, and it would curdle. It would go bad in less than a day. I switched to honey, different story. I would play with the amounts. This much honey, this much cream, this much tea, this much da da da. And it wouldn't matter, and honey should technically keep it from turning longer. But if I use too much honey, it curdles within no time. So, you get these little bits and bobs that make you go, okay, this is how she likes her tea.
Yeah.
This is how she likes that, or the other thing.
How to learn signs of approval versus signs of disapproval for what you're working on or doing.
Exactly. So you can get it through that way. But the main chunk of it, and this is what another word we throw around a lot, is journeying. So journeying is essentially, it's like astral projection, but instead of staying on the physical plane, you go to the spiritual plane. You go to the other side, and that's where we find the gods. That's where we find a lot of different things. Um, so that has become a very important part, and everything you learn from the gods through journeying, that's your UPG. That's your unverifiable. That is your touch into, well, this is how we work with together. While doing that, it is very, very important to discern the information you're given, which is why, we say it's so important to know the actual lore, because if a god is telling you something or teaching you something that goes directly against, specifically against known, um, known history and known stories
If
of
it's
them,
antithetical to who their essence is, you're not talking to your God.
you're not. You're talking to something else. If all of a sudden the Morrigan was having me. No, okay, so prime example, I've been getting into art over the last year and a half, getting back into something that was very important to me as a kid. Um, Anytime that I've reached out to her asking for advice on something or how to do this or should I do that, should some inspiration, I always kind of get that answer of, there's other gods and goddesses that can tell you about
She's
art
like, I don't
and
know how
other
to fucking
inspirations.
paint.
Like, that's not. Now, if they came in like, okay, I want you to drop away from doing community service, and I want to drop you away from doing, taking a leadership role within the community or within your friend group or this, that, or the other thing, and concentrate solely on art or solely on music or poetry. Well, no, poetry can't put in there because that's poetry was used differently with the Irish, so that would still kind of go in. But we go into these other things. She's trying to lead you into these other things. Well, that's not who she is.
She has nothing to do with
She
those
has
things.
nothing to do with those things. So, the discernment then tells me that's not you. And that's an important part to it. So, you have to learn and understand your UPG will never overshadow mythology and lore.
Yes.
And it shouldn't. It should not. Um, but it is necessary to learn and to grow. Um, like I said, this focuses in on your individual practice, and you kind of go from there. So to kind of close this up for today, I want to go over a few books that I think are absolutely great and that I recommend. In fact, I recommend so much that 3 of them are loaned out to people.
Right.
Only one of them I remember who the person was. I don't know who the other ones were, so that's discerning.
We might
That's
end up having
concerning.
to
I'm probably
replace
gonna have to
those.
replace those, and the one has been replaced like 3 times already. I got to be a little bit more
Stop
diligent.
giving your shit out to everybody.
It's important information they need to know.
Yeah, you know what? They can buy their own book or go to the library.
Well, that's fair. So I'm gonna preface it. There's 3 kind of styles of these books, right? And the first one I'm gonna talk about. This is very much neo-pagan. All right. The author for this book's definitely almost 100% takes, not quite 100% because that shows that would say that she completely throws away mythology. She does not. But she is UPG driven.
Relies heavily on UPG.
Very heavily. She's very neo-pagan instead of Reconstructionist. And that is the author Stephanie Woodfield. And then I know she has 2 books out on the Morrigan. The first one, this is one of the ones that's lent out. This is the name of it is Celtic Lore and Spellcraft, Dark Goddess Invoking the Morrigan. So again, this also doubles back around how I said, some people still they want to use that dark title to it as kind of a taking back and an emphasis. She also then recently came out with a different one. Now, I had already moved on from her books and her style of worship long before the second book came out, but I still got it because I thought, this is still a very interesting aspect to look at, and it's still a good way to look at it. The Morrigan herself does not like it when I completely cut out the relevancy of these other types and other ways of being looked at, unless it goes strictly against.
And on top of it, it gives you a different approach for people asking questions.
Exactly, because as a shop owner, as a podcaster, as all these things, we have to be ready to help people in multiple directions. So the second one, and I actually have this one here. It is Priestess of the Morrigan. Tilt this a Yep. All right. Tilt this a little more. Stephanie Woodfield, Priestess of the Morrigan. Prayers, rituals, and devotional work to the Great Queen. The second one, or I guess technically the third one, but the second style, and this is going to be, it's called The Morrigan, Celtic Goddess of Magic and Might, and this is Courtney Weber. Great book. Is more along the lines of a Reconstructionist, but still relies heavily on UPG. So to me, this is kind of like an in-between. It's in between the two, which is a really great place to be because you get the best of kind of both worlds.
Probably a great start for some people too, like a great place to jump off from.
That would be a good place to start off from. If you want to go with the Stephanie Woodfield books, the first one, the one that I wasn't able to show because it's out, The Dark Goddess Invoking the Morrigan, that would be a good one to start with. The next ones, these are Reconstructionist books, and the first 2 are by Morgan Daimler. If you have not read any of their books, you are missing out.
They also have a TikTok presence, Instagram presence, where they do a lot of discussion on the lore and stuff. So highly recommend looking them up.
Yeah, it's spelled Daimler.
Yes.
A wealth of knowledge. Their books, and it falls into the Pagan Portals series. And they have a lot of books covering a lot of different gods and a lot of different practices, with the vast majority of the books being just between like 100 to 120 pages. They're very short books.
They're very accessible.
But oh my lord, how much information Morgan Daimler crams into that few pages is just mind-boggling. It's unbelievable. You learn so much in such a short period of time. So the 2 books that I recommend of theirs that is specifically about on Morrigan, we have The Morrigan Meeting the Great Queen, which is one that I would read first, and then the Morrigan Raven Goddess. So it's kind of like a continuation of. So if you can get your hands on both of those books, read Meeting the Great Queen before Raven Goddess. If you can only get one at a time and you can only get Raven Goddess first, get Raven Goddess first. It's phenomenal writing. The last one, and this is one that just recently came out. I have not had time to read it yet myself. The Morrigan, Ireland's Goddess. There we go with the camera. So this is written by Laura O'Brien. Laura O'Brien is, I can't say enough good about Laura O'Brien. It's the same level as Morgan Daimler. And I know there's a lot of people who would disagree with me on this and don't necessarily put as much emphasis behind Laura O'Brien. That's because they are very much a strict Reconstructionist, Irish native, worked for the Irish tourism department for I think like a decade, and her whole job was to take tours down into Uvnagat, which is the Morrigan's personal she and the gateway from this world to the other world for specifically the Morrigan. And as a priestess for the Morrigan, being steeped in that energy for so long, they just
They're very connected.
the real world growth of knowledge is unbelievable. Laura and their partner John O'Sullivan have created an online school called the Irish Pagan School. I highly recommend that, not just for the Morrigan, but for any Irish paganism. There's also a class on an introduction to journeying. A lot of their classes are free. A lot of them are paid. So sign up for it. Take your free classes, and if you ever decide to take any of the paid, awesome. I did take one of their mini courses on Second Battle of Moitor, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And I had read that lore numerous times. I had even read the book we used for it and out of was written by Morgan Daimler, who taught themselves Old Irish and has become one of the most preeminent translators of Old Irish out there. And I read that translation before I took this class, and that's what the class was based off. And I still learned so much more because there's so much historical side to it put in there. You'd have to stop every 2 seconds to research every other place or every other thing that Morgan wrote about to get the information that Laura was able to put out. So those are two resources that I cannot push enough. I will say, especially on the Facebook pages, like for
if you're American, sit down, shut up.
Sit down and shut up. Don't tell Irish people what their culture is. Don't tell Irish people what their mythology is. Don't tell them what their lived perceptions are. And I'm saying that because I've seen it so much. And a lot of the hate that I've seen thrown out towards Laura O'Brien is because they come in and are like, shut the fuck up and get out. Don't tell us who we are. Shut your mouths and learn, right? Don't get butthurt if you end up getting slapped down for saying something stupid.
Some of these people know more than you and accept that. Yeah. You learn a lot more by listening than opening your big mouth.
100%. So that's the one little caveat I put in there.
As we sit here for 2 hours opening our big mouths.
What's the hours? It's a little over an hour. Okay, that time is getting long.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell because Tinkerbell sat on the computer.
Yeah, I don't know how far we were in on the first half.
We had to splice together. We had to cut some stuff out, and we'll move things around to make it cohesive. But my concept of time is kind of so. Yeah. All right, I could literally keep us talking here for hours upon hours more. I won't. We're gonna cut it short here. Jess has to pee. I have to pee.
Sean just showed up.
One of our buddies just showed up. So we're going to cut it here. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you're able to learn something from this. If you have any good information or any kind of back and forth you'd like to have, please feel free email at the.Conclave.Podcast@gmail.com. Hit us up on The.Conclave.Podcast, Facebook or Instagram.
And we also have a Discord channel.
We have a Discord channel for the Menagerie.
But
what's it? The Menagerie PGH, I believe, is
yeah,
if they look for it.
For our it should be on our Facebook.
Okay, that should be on the Menagerie's Facebook. If I remember when I go to launch this podcast, I'll put it in. I'll put the link in the description. Feel free to join in there. There's a lot of great channels talking about everything at the pagan and witchcraft community, and some spots that are reserved solely for everyday chat, so that we're islands often in this world. This is kind of a way of trying to bring people together and create more community. So hit us up on any of those if you'd like to add to the conversation, if you'd like to correct us on anything, or if you just want to tell me I'm a jackass. I'm open to that.
I do it all the time.
But I'm probably going to come back at you if you don't come out with proper information on why I'm a jackass. And on that note, like, share, subscribe, smash all those buttons, tell all your friends, and we are going to see you later. Bye, guys.
Adios and via con dildos.
Until next time.